So it may seem on the surface, obviously, that the current New York fraud trial that Donald Trump is facing has absolutely nothing to do with any of the other criminal trials that Donald Trump still has pending, right? I mean, there's really no connection between the Stormy Daniels case in New York. There's not much connection, obviously, to the documents case, and there's probably no connection to the Georgia or the federal January 6 cases, right? Well, apparently there is something that was introduced in the New York fraud trial last week that could be used by prosecutors in both Georgia and Special Prosecutor Jack Smith's office to make the case that Donald Trump did, in fact, know that he lost the 2020 presidential election. And this tiny piece of evidence that honestly really doesn't matter much to the fraud trial was a document where Donald Trump restored himself as the main trustee of the Trump organization because, of course, when he became president, he switched it over to where he was not the main trustee. But on January 15th of the year 2021, while Donald Trump still had 5 days left in office, he restored himself as the main trustee of the Trump organization, which means Donald Trump knew on January 15th of 2021 that in 5 days he wasn't going to be the president anymore because he had in fact lost the presidential election. So legal experts have, of course, jumped on this and they say, look, this is actually pretty strong evidence for Jack Smith to use to show, hey, look, Trump knew he wasn't going to be the winner, so he put himself back in charge of his own company. Fani Willis could use it over in Georgia to say, look, he's interfering in our elections, claiming the election was stolen, but he knew the whole time that that wasn't true. That's what the legal experts are saying, right? There's been a couple articles out there saying, oh, wow, this is a big deal. I'm going to have to disagree, guys. The document is, of course, dated January 15th, 2021. Donald Trump was still president of the United States at the time. And yeah, signing the document is a good indication, restoring yourself as trustee, that you knew in 5 days you weren't going to be the president anymore. But is this really the smoking gun piece of evidence that a lot of these writers and legal experts are trying to make it out to be? No, it's not, unfortunately. Because again, this happened on January 15th. 9 days prior to that, Congress had already certified the Electoral College results, meaning that no matter what, President-elect Biden was about to become President Biden, and Trump couldn't stop it. So he could still maintain, if this document is brought up in any of those trials, his legal team could easily counter that by saying, look at the date on it, right? The Electoral College had already been certified, wrongly so, but it was still certified. So, of course, he's going to give himself his company back because he knew at that point, because of the certification, he couldn't stop it at that point. He couldn't get all the fraud, whatever it is. That's easy to overcome in court for the defense lawyers. Even as incompetent, by the way, as Donald Trump's defense lawyers seem to be, they could probably overcome that. So we'd like to think that this is a smoking gun piece of evidence, but it really isn't. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news on that, but I also don't want to give you false hope. I think the prosecutors already have enough as it is. They don't need a document like this to be a gotcha moment for Donald Trump. But in terms of, nails in the coffin, this ain't it. So it's nice to think, but unfortunately, legally speaking, this document really doesn't prove much at all. Hey everyone, this is Aspen. And did you know that for the low cost of $0 per day, you can subscribe to the Fair and Balanced YouTube channel? We also encourage you to like, comment, and share, but again, click that subscribe button and help Aspen not be so grumpy.